Welcome back to another edition of B4evaKool podcast. My name is RexyFortyfive, and today we have Luis Ortega from Dainese. Welcome back to the show, man. How you been?
Good, man. How you been?
I can't complain, man. I could, but at the moment, my birthday's coming up and Christmas just passed, so I'm happy.
That's good. That's good, man.
So
Enjoy it when you can.
Exactly. So let's get caught up. We spoke before you went to EIKMA, so let's catch up. How was that? Was it a lot of people? Was it crowded? How was the show?
Yeah, it was crazy, man. It was according to the numbers, they said that it was the highest attended EIKMA show of all time. And which is wild because if you think about the size of EIKMA, it takes up multiple buildings in Milan. So there's a big, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, it's a giant convention center, but it's made up of multiple buildings and the entire place was completely jammed. It was a huge event. And it's for the first 2 days, it's supposed to be industry only. And even when it was just industry, it was already pretty crowded and people were like, wow, come Friday and Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be bananas. And sure enough, like Friday, a lot of people came and it was crazy. And Saturday, you couldn't even move.
Is it like when you say industry folks the first couple of days, is it like, NBA draft night? Everybody's trying to make deals and stuff like that?
No, there's not much selling going on, but it's dealers and distributors kind of talking to each other, seeing what new products are being brought to the event, seeing what new products are being displayed, just talking to the principals from different companies to understand what everybody thinks about this year, what everybody thinks about next year. It's a great time to just get together and just collaborate and exchange a lot of interesting information because everybody sees this industry from their own perspective. Mm-hmm. And not everybody kind of takes a step back and looks at the bigger picture. And this is one of those times where you can take a step back, look at the bigger picture and look at everybody's perspective. And maybe your perspective is not in alignment, but maybe your perspective is perfectly in alignment.
Wow. And then the other days are now the consumers come in and they just kind of swarm and take videos and photos and ask a million questions on what's to come.
Yeah. I mean, the next couple of days, you get all the influenzas going in there, sitting on the bikes, talking about them, even though they don't know anything about them. But you get a lot of it's a very enthusiastic crowd, man. It reminded me of the older days of the IMS show here in the US, where they used to sell out and people used to come sometimes for 2 days and sit on all the bikes and check out all the new equipment. It's like that, but I feel it's just so ramped up there because motorcycle culture in Europe is very important. I've told you in the past, here in the US, it's a hobby. It's a pastime. It's not mandatory. It's not your primary mode of transportation. Right. And in Europe, it's still the primary mode of transportation for a lot of people. And since you get distributors and companies that build motorcycles from all over the world and parts from all over the world all coming to the same place, you get people from all over the world coming, which is really, really cool just to see all the different faces and where they're coming from. Europe, South America, North America, Canada, Asia, all over the world, man. It really is a global motorcycle show.
Right. And you talked about the influencers coming in and not knowing what they're talking about. How do you guys deal with influencers that don't know what they're talking about? Because, as we're talking off here, I just purchased the new Panigale V4 and, just doing research and looking at other, folks' videos that already got on a bike and stuff like that. I got a sense that, it's kind of like, they know what the exterior of the house looks like, but they have no idea what's going on inside.
It's usually the case.
Yeah. How do you guys deal with that? Or you just kind of
I mean, it's hard because there's, like I've told you in the past, there's a couple of different types of influencers. There's influencers that really want to promote the sport and provide accurate information. There's other influencers which tend to be a little bit more negative on everything because negativity creates drama and drama creates clicks.
Yeah.
So they try to do that drama clickbait because that's what they want to do. And then there's others that are purely in it for money. So if you pay them, they'll say anything you want. You can sell an item from Temu, and if you pay somebody enough money, they'll be like, this is the best item you'll ever get on Temu for $60, and it's like, I don't know if I want to crash in a jacket that costs $60, man, or a glove that costs $12.
You're the second person I've heard bring up that brand until the first one I heard say it was like I've never heard of that brand before. So
Temu is not a brand. It's actually it's a website. It's a Chinese website that's like a big trading bazaar.
Okay.
And you can sell or buy. It's kind of, I'm not going to say it's even Amazon. It's even more. I mean, Amazon has a professionalism to it. Like the products you're going to get are going to come with a certain quality. Amazon or the vendors that sell on Amazon have to stand behind their product, and Amazon will take sellers to task if they sell inferior items and don't deliver on a certain amount of service. Temu is the same thing minus all of the accountability.
Okay.
That's what Temu is.
Okay.
And, you know, so anybody can sell anything on there. There's no accountability. You know, you can get overcharged. You know, you can get a picture, and when the item arrives, it's nothing like the picture, but since it's coming from China, there's no recourse. You might maybe get your money back, maybe, but there's no guarantee. I've heard good things, but I've heard more horror stories than good things when it comes to buying from Temu.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very leery of places I buy from. I think it's probably the era I grew up in versus these young kids. They may be a little bit free with
their swiping their card anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. No, you know, I tend to do a little bit more you know, research, and also I'm in IT too as well. So
you know how easy it is to steal your information, and by the time you figure it out, your card's tapped.
Exactly. So
when we do work with influencers, though, we try to give them all the correct information, and we try to kind of leave them alone. Like we give them the information and make your content yourself. Like we don't want to influence your content. If you really don't like the product, or if it doesn't fit, or say it. You know, we're not going to get better unless we get constructive criticism. There's some people that criticize just for the fact they want to, again. Negative influence creates buzz, which creates drama, which creates clicks.
Yeah, exactly. Which is the hardest part for me to deal with as well. Because even, you know, I try to, you know, watch as many things as I can, because, you know, just trying to learn and stuff like that. And that's the hard part when you hear, you know. I'll use it depending on the B4. When I look at 4 different influencers or YouTubers or content creators, and then you can tell that the information is just not right. And I don't know if they're just really trying to look for stuff to say, because it's always hard to just, you know, create something out of nothing all the time and stuff. And sometimes we do, you know, like Joe Biden, we misspeak, you know, it happens.
Yeah,
you know
that happens.
I mean, I'm not going to, trust me, if you go through all my videos and stuff like that, you know, I'm like, oh, I said that? That's not what I meant. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. So it is really hard to get, like, you know, clear information, especially, and I'm not a newbie, so I imagine newbies coming on and then they're hearing stuff and somebody's just telling them, you know, and they go run with it.
Yeah, now that's one of the sad part about it is, you know, I tell people all the time, I've given up a lot of joy in this industry to try to bring joy to other people in this industry. Because when you work in this industry, it really does kill your hobby, because you're so busy working that you don't get to enjoy the hobby. But you can also pass along the right information, and the next person that's not going to dedicate their life to this industry can actually just go and enjoy it. They can buy a motorcycle, they can buy gear, they can put parts on their bike, they go to do track days, they can do adventure touring, whatever they want to do. And, you know, unfortunately, some people have to sacrifice their joy so that other people can have joy. And I had tons of fun in my youth on my motorcycles and everything else. And at a certain point, you know, being in this industry, I was like, all right, now I got to take what I've learned and hopefully pass it on to the next generation and keep this motorcycling thing going.
Right. Yeah. Which is huge, because without folks like you, it wouldn't be an industry. You know what I mean? Because it comes out of passion, and passion drives it, even though, you know, there's business behind it at the end of the day, like, you know, racing and motorcycles and cars, you know, that's just, it's passion first.
Yeah, no, for sure. I still have the passion for this industry. If I didn't, I would have retired and been on a fishing boat for years now. I still have a lot of passion for this industry. I still have a lot of friends that, you know, I kind of look to them as the barometer. You know,
Mhm.
am I willing to put my friends or my family in this product, or am I willing to recommend this motorcycle to a friend or a family member? And you know, I talk to people that are a little bit more in the know, and I try to provide the best information that I can. And it's sometimes it hurts because you always want to think your stuff is the best, but you know,
Right.
you do come across sometimes you're like, oh man, that's a really good product. Shit, wish we had thought about that one.
Yeah, I could see that happen. So so how was the EIKMA show for you guys? And you know,
It was
was it
great. It was great.
success?
We introduced a couple of new products. We have a new street jacket or street vest called the Smart Air.
Okay.
It's kind of the next evolution of our DR street racing, street technology. It's not really racing quite just yet. Um, you can recharge the system yourself, which is the big push that we're doing right now. Is we're going away from the single deployment airbags that we had in the past to this new manufacturing process that makes the airbags capable of withstanding more than one deployment. And that was a huge hit. We deployed it there. I can't even tell you how many hundreds of times, because we had a specific system built where you can deploy it and take all the air out and then redeploy it again. And it's about 98% exactly what you would feel on the bike. I mean, on the bike, it's going to be a lot more impactful, much faster.
Right.
But the strength of the bag and how it deflects energy and disperses energy, it's the same. So that was really cool. And then we introduced a new helmet on the AGV side called the K7.
Okay.
So it's a mid-range or mid-price fiberglass helmet with a drop-down internal visor. We haven't had one in a while since our K5.
All right.
And so this thing's been in development for several years now. We finally introduced it, and people really liked it. You know, it comes with a lot of new technology that we haven't had in the past.
And is it more for sport touring?
It's sport touring. Like I would put it in that, you know, it's in that $500 price point where it's like light, economical, quiet, has the ability to connect a Bluetooth system directly inside of it. So you don't have to have the piece on the outside.
Nice.
If you want to use like a second party Bluetooth system, you can, but we have a Bluetooth system that's powered by Cardo.
Okay.
And it integrates directly into the helmet, so you don't really have to do a lot of work. So it's a really cool helmet. And then we also introduced a new photochromatic shield for our K6, which is our sport touring, sport riding, again, mid-price helmet.
Okay.
Really nice photochromatic shield. It's been a long time coming, so it was good to finally see it like out in the world, because we've been testing it for a very long time.
Nice. And that air vest, is it for to wear underneath like your jacket, over your jacket?
Yeah, you could wear it under or over. It's completely up to the customer. I mean, I find more and more customers typically use it under. The problem that I found with that, with not just our system, but with all systems, is when you're doing the under, people tend to go up a size in the jacket. And now that takes away from the overall safety of the jacket, because the armor might not stay in place because they want a little bit of a bigger jacket to have that extra room.
Right.
But now when you go with a bigger jacket, now the jacket's not doing its job. Because
Gotcha.
you're more worried about making this other thing fit.
Right.
So what I've been
right.
finding more and more is people are starting to use them on the outside of the jacket, just so that their jacket can fit correctly and work correctly. And again, this is we're only 20 years into this airbag game, and we're constantly developing and constantly looking at, you know, what can we do better. I mean, realistically, the first consumer airbags were late 2000s.
Okay.
Ish. You know, our first airbag suit that we released was like late 2000s, early 2010s. And since then, we've seen more and more systems come into the market, and not just for racing, but for street and mechanical and ECU driven. So there's still a long way to go in this airbag game.
Yeah, pretty soon we just look like the Michelin Man when we when we come off the bike, which is a good thing. That means you're intact.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. Speaking of Michelin, let's get into MotoGP and some of the drama. There's no drama in Michelin, but you know.
No. I mean, there is drama. Everybody hates their tires. It seems like
okay.
every time somebody has a bad day, they turn and they point at Michelin. And say,
yeah.
Oh, Michelin, they gave me a bad front tire. They gave me a bad back tire. Oh, the tire pressure sensor gauge was 1 pound over, so we're going to deduct four
What
and
is
a
it
half
like?
seconds off the end of your lap time. Like
Yeah, it's
it's
like
so weird.
one in I don't know 5,000 tires bad.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it seems like they keep pointing that 1 in 5,000 right at Pecco Bagnaia because he seems to complain more than anybody about bad tires.
Yeah, well, him and Martin,
Oh,
Martin,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, and and not to, yeah, we might as well talk about, you know, and I still think some of that is due to their computer systems. I think the systems sometimes just spits out because it's no computer is going to be 100%. It's gonna puke at least once.
Well, I
You
think
know,
it's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, one, you're really pushing the limits of what these tires can do.
yeah,
Michelin is always trying to develop something, bring something new, and then the big problem is the tire pressure regulations. Like you
right,
can't be below or above this specific tire pressure,
right,
and that gives the teams a very small window to work within, especially like on some tracks that are more abrasive. Sometimes you want to run a different tire pressure than on tracks that are easier on the tires,
right,
but you can't. You have
right,
to play within this, and now this causes either the degradation of the tire to go up dramatically, or you got to change the compound of the tire. So now you're racing on a compound that's not really the best compound for your bike or for your riding style or for the temperature of the day, or like it's a combination of things that are causing so many tire issues, I feel.
right. But it doesn't seem like grip is a lack of grip is an issue. It seems like either the temperature is affecting it or these other things are affecting it. But
Yep.
it's because you look at the times that Pecco and Martin had, it seemed like they had a lot of grip.
No, grip they have. It's in certain conditions on certain tracks where the tire pressure really comes into play. And it's not the grip. Remember, if you have too much grip, you're going to tear the tire up.
You're right.
If you don't have enough of grip, you're going to spin the tire up, which eventually is going to overheat the tire and cause other problems. So it's, by having this specific tire pressure, I think this is what they're really causing all these issues to come together at once. Is there a good solution? Not really, because if somebody goes out there with a tire pressure that's too low, now it's a danger. And if
Yep.
it's too high, now that's a danger also. So I understand why the FIM is doing this, why Dorna is doing it, but there's got to be a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more of a range. It can't be like, this is your range, 2.5 pounds. And if you're outside of that range, then we're going to deduct 3, 4, 5 seconds, long lap penalty, whatever they're going to do. And that's the other problem, is the way that Dorna implements their penalties is never consistent.
It's like the NBA reffing.
Yeah, man. It's like, 7 steps. Nah, that's good. Well, half a step, travel. It's like, wait a second, man. That guy just walked from the foul line.
Exactly.
I literally turned around and took, 2 steps.
Yeah.
Travel.
No, it's interesting with Dorna and the penalties, and I don't fully understand because I mean, you mentioned safety if the tire pressure is too low, so they're being penalized. They're being penalized for creating an unsafe environment, or
Well,
or
if your
riders are
tire
trying to get
pressure is
an
low, your
advantage.
contact patch gets bigger. So
Right,
technically, you can artificially create more grip.
right.
So now you have a unfair advantage to everybody else that has the correct tire pressure. That's the way the Dorna looks at it.
Okay, which is
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, there are times that you use a little bit lower pressure to get more grip.
right.
And that's, they want to make sure that everything is, which is crazy to me. They want to make sure everything's even, yet they let certain teams get away with murder with developing aero packages and developing all these things. That's like, well, it's not really breaking the rule. It's just bending it to the breaking point.
Right.
You're supposed to, technically, you're not supposed to have any mechanically driven suspension adjustment. Yet I can put a button on your bike and I can squat the whole bike coming out of the corner so you can go full throttle without wheeling it, because technically it's not mechanically driven. My finger's activating it. It's like everything after your finger is mechanical. Well, yeah, but the finger's not mechanical.
Sounds like there's a lot of lawyers at Dorna.
Well, I mean, I'll take it from NASCAR. I forget the guy who says it all the time, but if you're not cheating, you're not trying to win.
Right. Yeah. I've heard that. And I think that's, seems like that's all sports.
Yeah. Any
because you look
any
at
sport with speed and time, if you're not cheating, and even sports without speed and time, baseball, if you're not corking the bat,
Yeah, or just rules. If you just the rules that they have, like you just saw what Belichick used to do with the NFL rules and get around that.
Yep.
And I think we just saw that with was it Harbaugh and that free kick he got based on some ridiculous rule
Yep.
in NFL. And it's the only second time that a situation like that happened. But he knew the rules, so it's like you at least have to know the rules so you know how you can bend them or
Yep.
sometimes take advantage of them.
Yeah, and that's what they do. They get in there, look at the rules, and it's the same thing in Formula One. Same, I mean, everywhere. Even in athletic sports, people that are trying to find ways to take, drugs to go faster, to run faster, to jump
Right.
higher, and they're just looking at ways to get around the testing. Again, if
Exactly. Or
you're
getting
not
it,
cheating, you're not
using it,
trying.
even though it's not a banned substance, they're using it to take an advantage until it becomes a banned substance.
Until it becomes a banned substance. Well, technically, I can't take testosterone, but I can, whatever, get a
Yeah. No.
transfusion directly from a horse or something. I don't know.
But
For years, B4evaKool Industries, juiced up half of the Major League Baseball teams because technically they weren't banned. So
yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So they can take stuff as long as it's not banned. So it's weird with the rules. And it sounds like KTM didn't have any rules because it seems like
they didn't have any rules. It sounds like they didn't have a chief financial officer that was looking at the bottom line, man. I mean, it's crazy because over the past, I want to say like 7-8 years, like the news has been like, KTM's growth. KTM and the owner of KTM owned Husqvarna, and now he's bringing Husqvarna into KTM, and KTM is buying, I think recently they bought MV Agusta.
Yeah.
And, KTM is going to blow up MotoGP, and they're going to take over Moto2 and Moto3 and and all these things. And all of a sudden somebody's like, hey man, we've been writing all these checks, but the bank account doesn't have the funds to keep writing all these checks.
Yeah. Do you think that, we can look at KTM and Ducati in the sense that I think both of them from maybe 2015 on was throwing money, right? I mean, and it looks like Ducati won that race. And if KTM would have won that race, no one would be complaining about the money situation. I think it's because just the last couple of years, Ducati was just better.
Well, and it's not just from the racing standpoint, but I'm talking about the sales standpoint. If you look at KTM sales overall compared to Ducati sales over the past 7 years, Ducati has shown year over year a steady growth. Right. And Ducati has targeted the markets where they know they're the strongest. Like, here in the US, we're one of their biggest customers because we spend more money on motorcycles per capita, it's wild. If you think about how many motorcycles we sell in the US versus how many are sold in other countries and how much the total volume in dollars is in the US versus total dollars in other countries, we are spending more on less motorcycles than anybody else is spending less on more motorcycles. So we still have the same economy as like most of South America, but we're buying less motorcycles. Because we're buying those $25,000, $35,000, $45,000, $55,000 motorcycles. They're buying those $500, $600, $700 motorcycles.
Right.
So Ducati knows where, what countries are really the predominant ones that they need to be strong in. And that's why they do what they do in the US, what they do in Europe and in certain parts of Asia. They know where the money's at. That's where they're focusing on. And that's where their growth has come from. They're not selling more bikes. They can't physically produce more motorcycles than they can produce.
No.
But their price point is at a premium. You're not buying an $8,000 or $6,000 brand new Ducati. You're buying at least a $12,000, $15,000, $25,000, $30,000, $35,000, $40,000 Ducati.
Right. And KTM, they do sell a lot of dirt bikes, but the street bikes,
outside of their adventure bikes, I don't come across too many KTM street bikes.
No, I have two RC390s. But like, there's not a lot of them on the streets when you see them. I see more RCs at the track than I do on the street. And the Dukes, same thing. I don't really And I'm talking about the small one, the not even the twins or anything like that. So, which is weird because, like you say, it's they just never figured it out to this date.
Yeah, I mean, they had the RC8 for that short period of time. Then they reintroduced that limited edition RC8, I think a year or
Track
two
only,
ago,
yeah, the
track
track only.
only. But if you look at their range, they focused very heavily on one specific off-road and off-road adventure.
Right. And naked, I
And
guess.
that's a great market. Don't get me wrong, because especially with off-road adventure, those adventure guys, and girls, they'll drop 30, 40, 50,000 bucks, get their bike built the way they want it, put the bags on them, put the crash guards, do all this stuff, crazy stuff.
Right.
But it's a small industry, and you're picking a small part of the small industry. So you're actually narrowing your customer base even further down. Like, they've never tried to develop a cruiser. They've never tried to develop a more utilitarian, kind of everyday motorcycle, or even a street bike, like
Yeah,
an actual street bike that can sell for 15 to 20,000 bucks, whether it's a 900 or whatever it's going to be. Like, they've stayed in their lanes with dirt bikes, with adventure touring, and with a little bit of racing with the 390 and so forth. But
Right.
the RC 390 is overpowered by everybody right now.
Yep. Oh yeah,
So, and they haven't done anything to make it newer. And I don't think they're going to be doing much to make it newer. I just think that they kind of, with the money they had coming in, I think they wasted a little too much going out.
Right. And so where do you think things will be for them? It sounds like from what I can tell online, they're going to stick around for the next couple of years in MotoGP.
I think they'll stick around. Definitely they'll stick around in 2025. 2026 is going to be interesting.
Right.
Because if they don't make any real steps in 2025, I don't know if they'll stick around in GP. They might stick around in Moto 2 and Moto 3.
Okay.
But GP, unless you have some big sponsors giving you some big money, if you're flipping the bill to be there, it gets very expensive very fast. It's one of the reasons Suzuki, bowed out when it bowed out. It's the reason Kawasaki's never gone back to MotoGP. Like, it's very expensive to have a MotoGP team if you have to flip the bill yourself.
Yeah. And yeah, so we shall see. I feel bad for the likes of Acosta. I mean, Brad, he's getting older. I mean, I'm pretty sure Brad, they'll both get rides somewhere else, but if they're not in MotoGP, is fewer bikes on the grid. I hear Suzuki and maybe BMW might Suzuki may come back, but BMW may try to jump in there. But it's going to be really, might get, consolidated a little bit with KTM because they got 4 bikes.
Do they have 4?
Yeah,
they do. They have the factory team, and then they have the one satellite team. Aprilia has 4 bikes this year as well.
Right.
And then Yamaha is going to have 4 bikes this year.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. So they're 4
and
bikes.
And Ducati, Honda has
4.
And
Ducati
down to
6 now,
down from 17.
Yeah, something like that. Who's counting?
But they might bump back up to 8 in 2026 if KTM ends up leaving. Those extra teams have to go somewhere. We still have to have a grid of at least 20, whatever, 22,
24.
Yeah, like you can't have a 16-person grid. I mean,
right. And
at that point, Dorna would have to step in and do something to help fund a couple extra teams, because that's a bad product on the field.
I don't know if we're going to be saying Dorna in 26 because Liberty Media Group is buying a big chunk of Dorna. So I can't believe they feel good about this right now.
Liberty Media, I mean, don't they? I think they already own them.
Well, yeah, so I'm saying they're supposed to take over. I think they're getting like 80% like now around. Okay. I think it's supposed to be around December. So I mean, and their stock is growing. So I can't believe they'll be happy with this contention that's going on.
I'm sure they'll figure something out. I think the people at Liberty Media, and again, I don't have any inside information here, but I think the people at Liberty Media owning F1 and owning MotoGP own the true crown jewels of world racing. I mean, NASCAR is obviously here in the US the biggest thing going, but globally, Formula One, you own Formula One and MotoGP. Like, you own 2 of the biggest jewels that you can have. And
yeah. I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, and I know they've said it a couple of times or they haven't said it, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point you have a combined MotoGP Formula One weekend somewhere.
Yeah, yep. But I've been hearing that, which would be dope. I mean, I've heard some of the riders talk. I think it depends who's on the track first, kind of thing. Is it the cars or the bikes? Depend on how much grip or they'll have, that kind of thing. But
for me, it depends on where can they find a track that has enough garages.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because you need a lot of garages to have MotoGP and Formula One on the track at the same time.
Maybe you do it like what they're doing with the NBA with this playoff cup thing. Maybe you have only like 8 and 8, the best 8, bikes and the best 8 cars, and you just make it like a special kind of like a sprint-ish kind of thing, like they, where it's just maybe a couple of rounds and not the whole grid. Because you're right, where would you find some of these guys are gonna be in the next town?
Yeah, you need a garage that can hold what more than 50 teams. 55 teams.
Yeah.
Plus, you need VIP suites for 55 teams. You need hospitality for 55 teams. You need a lot, man. That's a big. I don't know where they're going to do it. I don't know how they're going to do it. I hope that they can figure out the logistics to it, because I would love to see it myself.
Yeah,
I think it would be amazing.
Yeah, and you couldn't do like a street race thing because of the bikes.
Yep.
So it'd have to be a track. I mean, at least
I know there's a couple of tracks that are being built now. Like I know there's if they asked, I'm sure Saudi Arabia would build an entire new track for them next week.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Right.
Here in the US, I mean, the only option we have is Coda, and even Coda, when they've done MotoGP here and they had the baggers this past year, the baggers were all in the parking lot behind the garages.
Oh wow.
Like they were working out of their trailers. They didn't have garages. So they were fielding from the inner parking lot of the garages, of the pits.
Yeah.
Because all the garages were already taken up by teams. So,
right. I mean, if they have the space, they can do a temporary situation. But again,
but who's going to do the temporary? Who's going to be the redheaded stepchild? Because the MotoGP guys are going to want garages, and the Formula One guys are going to want garages.
Yeah, I was going to say, whoever's the fastest, they do it. They can run around the track, foot race.
But yeah, I mean, I hope to see that in the future. I hope that KTM fixes their issues. It sucks for the riders that are there now, because all year Jack Miller was like, "Oh man, I hope I could stay with the KTM. I hope," and then he got a job somewhere somewhere else, and he's like,
"Yeah,
glad I'm not there."
Oh yeah. Him and who's the other guy? Well, Fernandez he's a test rider now.
He's a test rider now for Honda.
No, that's the thing. It's crazy. And go back, like if KTM wasn't there this year, I mean, Ducati pretty much ran away with it. But they were the closest thing. I mean, Aprilia here and there, but they were, because of Pedro Acosta, they were closer, to or in between the Ducatis than any other manufacturers.
Well, Aprilia was the only manufacturer this year that kept Ducati from doing a complete lockout of every single win at every single track.
Yeah.
Like
just one?
I think 2 times. I want to say they've
Coda, right?
Coda
Coda
with Maniac Vinales.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised, I mean, that is a good track for them, but I was surprised he did good because the guy is either great or he's a head case. Like he's one of the most talented, inconsistent riders in the history of MotoGP.
Right.
It's and now he's leaving, or he got booted from Aprilia.
No, he didn't get booted. He left, but unfortunately,
no. If you don't have a ride and you get another ride, that means you were booted.
No, he had a ride.
Give you a contract.
He was mad that Jorge got signed and they didn't talk to him. And
why would they?
And so because of that, from what I understand, he didn't call me and tell me this, but from what I understand, it was just like he didn't like how it went down, and so he left. But he has to be sitting here like, did I just make a mistake? Because KTM is in trouble right now, right? And it's just kind of like,
well, the thing with Maverick is, if you think about it, he has been with, what is it, 4 manufacturers now in 7 years?
Oh, well, yeah, going to KTM will be the 4th. But he's also won on all of them so far.
A broken clock is right twice a day.
Well, there's some guys in MotoGP that they ain't even right once because
Well,
they ain't win
the
yet.
thing is, he has won, but he could have won more if he was a little bit more consistent. Like I compare Maverick Vinales minus the amount of wins. I compare him to a Max Biaggi. Because in Max Biaggi's day, Max Biaggi was the most talented rider and could win almost every single weekend, except on any weekend that the bike wasn't 100% perfect.
Fair enough. Yep.
And
I was going to say that.
And that's the same thing with Maverick Vinales. If you put him on the perfect bike, perfect temperature, correct humidity, correct angle of the sun in the sky, the stars in the he will win.
Yeah.
But if the valve stem cap is a quarter turn too loose, the bike's unrideable, and he will just not be able to get around that problem.
Right. I think he's how can I put this? He's very in tune to the machine he's on, which is a good and a bad thing, because you're right. When you have that kind of feel, you feel things that you can't get around where, and I'm not going to say Marquez doesn't have that kind of feel, but Marquez can ride around a bad problem. Yeah. And some of these other riders, Jack Miller, some of these other guys can ride around a bad problem. But with him, it literally has to be tuned right, as he's like, I'm not playing.
Or even if the team doesn't do exactly what he wants, in this case, you guys didn't tell me you're hiring somebody else. Yeah, man, you don't own the team. You work for us, bro. I don't have to tell you who I'm hiring.
So yeah,
with Yamaha, Yamaha fired him with 3/4 of the season left because he intentionally tried to blow up the motor because he hated the fact that they wouldn't
replace the motor
or do what they want. So he's like, you don't want to replace it? I'm going to blow this motor up instead.
Yeah.
Like that's childish, man. That's unprofessional.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. To deliberately try to, blow up an engine is one thing if it happens by accident or you crash but yeah, no, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate we don't know what's going to happen, but being in that situation, when you work for a company and they have financial situation, it's going to, and you don't know, and you're not sitting there in all those board meetings, it's going to be hard to sit here and go, I'm going to give 100%.
Well, here's the problem with Maverick. He's burned so many people. Where's he going to go next?
It was World Superbike.
Do you think, but even in World Superbike, who's going to hire him in World Superbike? Do you think Ducati's going to hire him? I know Yamaha's not going to hire him.
Yeah, I guess
this is part of when you play at this level, you have to be very cognitive of what you say. You always have to protect your number one product, which is yourself. You always have to speak highly about yourself and your skills. You never put any doubt in the media about yourself. You're always the best rider. And if you listen to any of these guys, they'll never say it directly. Who do you think is going to win this weekend? I'm betting on myself. I'm this and that. This guy's going to be a hard competition, but I really believe I'm going to win. But when you badmouth other people or you come across as a damaged product, nobody wants to buy that product, man. And he's his own product.
Yeah. No, I feel you. He's putting himself in a bad position.
Yeah. And it's similar with Jorge Martin. Like I feel that he's railed against Ducati so much, and it's gotten a little bit petty at this point. Like you don't ride for them anymore, man. Just move on. You got a new team, you got a new job. All right, you want to take your little number one sticker and put it on a bike you didn't win by? That's fine. You won the championship. It's your number one. You can do whatever you want with it.
And I think you're right to bring him up in a sense that he's similar to Vinales, because I didn't know this until I think earlier this year. One of the commentators mentioned it, but KTM wanted him to go on a GP bike, and he left KTM to go to Ducati. So I don't think KTM is going to bring him back in, because of that, right? And now he's bad-mouthing Ducati, and I'm not going to say he doesn't have a leg to stand on, because trust me, I would feel a way too. If I've done everything possible to show I deserve a seat and stuff like that. So I'm not like in that situation like that. It's always better to be professionals, but I think, being a young 20-something-year-old, having a team pick someone else over you and stuff like that,
No, it hurts. It stings. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's gonna sting. That's a little oil in that wound. That's a little alcohol in that wound. But if you think about the day that everybody found out that Ducati signed Mark, Vinales was like, "Hey, we just had a great conversation with Ducati." He started saying, pretty much saying, "Oh, the seat is definitely mine." Like blah 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 blah, and but he didn't end it there. He actually kept going. It'd be crazy for them to give the seat to somebody else. I've been the most competitive guy on Ducati. It's like, look, Mark, the entire time, whether you hate him or love him, was very like, hey, do I want the factory seat? Yes, I want the factory seat, but it's not my choice to make. Ducati has to make the choice. Like, he's more polished because he's been in the game longer, versus Martin is less polished because nobody sat him down and given him enough PR training.
Yeah. And also,
and hey, I'm bringing these 8 championships with me and all this money.
You know what I'm saying? I don't think Jorge got the same treatment Marc Marquez got, and I know a lot of people say that Jorge is not Marc Marquez, but for the last couple of years he was runner-up. Last year was runner-up. This year he won, and he shows the potential. But
now here's the thing: I'll just to play devil's advocate. Who do you think was more impressive? Jorge Martin on what is known as the best bike in the entire paddock. Okay. Who was expected to be in competition with Pecco. Or Marc Marquez on last year's bike that he had never ridden before. And there was 3 other riders also on last year's bike. He outperformed all of them. And he pretty much outperformed Pecco Bagnaия's teammate that's on the newest bike that's already been on the bike for several years.
Yeah.
So who's more impressive at the end of the year?
I agree. Marquez was definitely more impressive. You got to give him that for sure. Does he? Does he? He has the factory seat, so it is what it is.
Yeah. Right? We'll see what happens next year. He might wad that bike up every weekend and not finish a race. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
no.
It's there's always 2 ways to look at everything. I understand the people that are upset that Mark got the seat. I understand the people that are upset that Jorge didn't get the seat. Like, I understand all of that. I think next year will be an interesting year because, the Aprilia has shown that it can be a good bike. Now let's see if Martin, that was on the best bike, can go take a pretty good bike, very competitive bike, and make it a more competitive bike. Does he have that Valentino Rossi in him to go from the best bike to not the best bike and develop a better bike that can compete with the best bikes?
We shall see. I hope so. And he's gonna be with Bezzecchi as well. So I guess Martin, on one hand, he's ridden with Pecco for so long, so I assume he may have a similar relationship with Bezzecchi. Considering that they Pecco and Bezzecchi are from B4evaKool Academy and stuff like that. So
we'll see, man. Personalities, just because we work for the same company doesn't mean we have the same personality. Pecco is definitely a very animated guy, Pecco is a very reserved guy, whereas Bezzecchi is a very animated guy. Yeah. Bezzecchi's age shows in a lot of the things he does on and off the track in a good way, not in a bad way.
Yeah. No.
But Pecco's already been at the top and, knows what the pressure is, knows what it takes to get to the top, has put in the work, has been on the right bike, has been on the right team. Like, his career has been guided a little bit differently than Bezzecchi's. Now, do I think Bezzecchi is as talented as Pecco? I think so. I don't have no reason to think he's not. He has had, great flashes of brilliance. But then again, you're at the top of the pile. You're one of the top 20 riders in the world if you're in MotoGP.
Yeah,
supposedly.
I will point this out. I think Bezzecchi had a better first couple of years than Pecco.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. So I think Pecco struggled a little bit more. Granted, Bezzecchi struggled a lot last year, which they all did. So except for Marquez, like you pointed out. So it will be interesting.
I'm just wondering if that struggle for last year had something to do with just the VR46 team and the Ducati relationship and maybe not getting support or, again, that's kind of stuff that's kept behind closed doors.
Right.
But how does a team that was very competitive, go in an opposite direction or start to struggle so badly?
Right. And he did hurt himself at the beginning of the year too,
Mhm.
practice and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, and I think that jacked him up for before the beginning half of the season, and stuff like that. Because I mean, I can only imagine you having to ride a little bit differently because you're
Yeah,
feeling
you got to
pain.
ride around injuries, ride around pain.
So
It's not fun.
no, yeah, but I'll go back to Aprilia. I think probably has a chance to have a better year coming up than KTM, just based on the turmoil that they're
Yeah.
going through and all that. Because, like I said, that's going to have to you're going to have strong people in KTM to keep everybody locked in and focus on what's the most important thing, and not thinking about the finances. And it's going to be hard for some people.
Yeah, I mean, I hope on the financial front that they can find either an equity partner that can invest in them, somebody that can kind of infuse some money. I mean, I hate when companies have to do it, but they might be driven into bankruptcy to write off some of their debt, and then they have to restructure their finances. I mean, this is
Right.
the not glamorous part of the motorcycle industry, but unfortunately, a lot of companies have to eventually deal with it one way or another.
Right.
Right now here in the U.S., for instance, we're seeing Harley Davidson dealers closing left and right, and it's for a multitude of different reasons. Harley Davidson had a really bad sales year. They didn't come out with the best products. They had a lot of backlash with the, go woke, go broke movement. Like, it's just, everything kind of came together all at once for Harley in 2024, which is sad because I thought they came out with some really cool new motorcycles in 2024.
Right.
Like,
And
their new glides, and like, these are really cool looking, very modern, capable motorcycles.
yeah, and the Bagger series is, really having people who didn't look at Harleys before look
Yeah.
at them now. So, is it just the times? Is it, just one or, I mean, obviously we're not on the inside, one or two bad management decisions, or, you know,
I think it's a couple of probably more than anything. I think it's a couple of bad management decisions. I mean, the V twin industry hasn't grown exponentially, but I mean, they still account for 50% or more
right.
of the entire motorcycle market in North America.
Wow.
So that's a big chunk of change. It's one of the reasons Indian is able to stay profitable. It's one of the reasons Harley Davidson and Harley Davidson, more than anybody, it's kind of like a Ducati brand. It's a culture.
Mm-hmm.
There's only two, I mean, I guess once in a while you might see somebody with a Yamaha tattoo. I don't know why, but you'll definitely see people with a badge and shield and with a Ducati tattoo
Yeah,
because
for
it's a
sure.
culture.
Yeah.
I don't see many Suzuki tattoos out there.
But
But,
I think they
those
got the
two
temporary ones.
those two brands have built a culture around the brand, and you have to understand your culture. And Ducati's really good at understanding its culture. Ducati's culture, the DRE community, like, I
Yeah.
know a lot of people that are like fully invested in it.
Oh
I make
yeah.
fun of them for it, but I honestly, I'm jealous of them for the passion that they have for it, because I'm like, man, I once had that passion for
We,
um,
you might need to take a sabbatical, man.
but I know I have friends that are like presidents of Ducati rider groups or
Right.
Ducati owners groups, and they go to the DRE days and they do all this stuff. They go to the and Harley's had that same culture, and I think over the past couple of years, with some of the changes that they've had in management, they've disrupted that culture in a really bad way. So I just think that they need to kind of take a step back, understand who their market is,
Right.
and then get re-embraced by that market. Don't alienate them. Don't tell them this is what you're going to get. Understand what they're asking for and try to appease them while also looking forward. You gotta modernize. You gotta get better equipment. You gotta develop new motors. You gotta develop new bikes. Hopefully they can get on track soon, man. Because I hate to see some of these legacy Harley Davidson dealerships closing,
Mm-hmm.
because it hurts my soul, man. Like,
Yeah.
to watch a Harley Davidson dealership that's been around for 75, 80 years close, like a family owned Harley Davidson business.
Right.
So it might be like in its third generation closing. Like, that's just as a motorcycle enthusiast, it just hurts my soul, man.
No, I can imagine, man. It's never good for family businesses to close down.
Mm-mm.
After 30 plus years and stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
and when they were a staple in the community, and giving people their first jobs or their first motorcycle, or got them into the motorcycle industry and stuff like that. It's we talked about passion earlier. It's like, it's that passion that, creates these community that give people long lasting memories. And, on one hand, the business people say it's just business and something's going to have to close down. But, when you look back at it, as we're talking, you can see, where people probably bigger than them have made decisions that's affecting, their dealership and stuff like that, and affecting how they can, continue to grow their business.
Yeah, it's sad when things outside of your control impact you so much as a business.
Yeah.
Again, back to storytelling. I think about a dealership that's been around for 70 years closing, and I think about the grandfather who got his first bike there.
Yeah.
And then took his son to get his bike there.
Yep.
And then that son took his son to get his bike there. And so
daughter.
on and so forth, or daughter, and so on and so forth. Like now, this thing that has been a community focal point that has storytelling to it that even the dealership might not know about,
right?
But has some storytelling that has some, significant value to a lot of people. Closes. It's an impact, man. It's not a great feeling.
No, not at all. And it's and is the industry becoming too not commercialized, but is it just being too business-like? I mean, is it just thinking about the bottom line too much rather than, No,
I mean, there's two sides to that. There's a lot of enthusiasts that are still in this industry, and more enthusiast dealerships go under than business dealerships go under.
Gotcha.
The people that are 100% driven only by enthusiasm will go out of business faster because they let that enthusiasm get the best of them. Like, you need to have a business mind.
Right.
You need to have passion for what you're doing, but a business mind. The one downside to that is when the businesses start to gobble each other up. Like, there's a lot of big entities now that are buying other dealerships and becoming part of these massive dealer groups. And, kind of like they're looking more at the bottom line. They're not looking at what the individual dealership does and brings to the community and things like that. They're just buying these dealerships for one of two reasons: to eliminate competition. So let's say I buy 4 dealerships or 5 dealerships in the Atlanta area, and all those dealerships have Suzuki, Honda, Kawasaki, Yamaha. And then I end up closing 3 of those 5 dealerships. Now there's only 2 dealerships in the entire area that sell Suzuki, Yamaha, Honda, and I own both of them.
Right.
Now there's no competition. Now I'm taking that away from the dealers. I'm taking that away from the consumers. You have to buy from me. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you're a reputable place. Maybe you hire quality people. But as we were speaking before, let's say they're not. Let's say they hire some bad actors, and now these dealerships get bad reputations, and that resonates throughout the community. Well, we're going to take our bikes now. We're going to buy our bikes. We don't want to deal with these dealers, but they're the only options we have. And then that starts to just, again, it's a cancer, man. It spreads. It kills the entire vibe in the area. People don't want to ride. People rather go somewhere else.
Right. And if you have to drive, 3 hours to the next dealer, then you're not riding, right?
Yeah. Do you really want to buy a bike at that point? I'll buy a used bike and I'll run it until it breaks, and then I'll just throw it away. Like, I'm not going to go buy a new one and give this dealership that I don't like, or ththese people that don't like, my money.
Right. And that's the unfortunate side, because you have to kind of make that stand as a consumer when there's bad dealerships. And like you just mentioned, when one dealer is buying multiple dealerships up, sometimes as a consumer, you don't know that. They still keep the original names and keep everything looking the same, but it's not the same. And then you see the quality start to go down and stuff like that, which is, again, if they're reputable owners and they believe in you doing the right thing, it's great. But if they're, they could be reputable and just going through bad financial times too, because when bad things happen, people tend to start looking for shortcuts, or maybe wishing up on a star too much, and it falls apart.
But that's where having, again, good business sense helps businesses stay afloat a little bit longer, a little bit better, without reducing the quality of the business.
Right.
If and again, it's two sides to the same coin. You also have guys that come in there and like, hey, I want to squeeze every dollar I can out of this dealership. What can I do?
Right.
I'm going to hire less people. I'm going to hire people for less money. I'm not going to hire as many certified techs. Or there's a bunch of different ways that I can go about this. I can, from now on, when I do oil changes, I'm gonna sell the cheapest oil I can buy. I'm gonna buy oil this way. There's good business practices, and then there's corrupt business practices, or not good for the consumer relationship practices, and that's what a lot of dealers do. We were talking about it before. You just bought a bike. You go and sit down with the finance guy. All of a sudden you see that, oh, I got a doc fee. What's this doc fee for? Oh, well, it's this paper that I'm writing your information on. Wait, I'm paying you for the paper that you're writing my information on for the bike that I'm buying and that I'm already paying $30,000 for.
Yeah.
You're gonna gouge me for another $200.
It's brutal, and they say it so easily. It's just like,
no. That's not a doc fee. You're gonna deduct that doc fee, man. I'm not paying you for writing this up. Like, that's ridiculous. Oh, well, we got this other fee over here. What's that fee? Oh, freight and prep. All right. Freight, I can understand. Maybe you did pay, maybe the manufacturer didn't ship you the bike for free with the 80 other bikes on the same truck.
Exactly.
For some reason, my bike was the most expensive bike in that truck to ship, but all right. But prep fee. Well, the bike comes about 90% prep. Like, you maybe put one wheel on, check the fluids, did the PDI and submitted it to the dealer. Why am I being charged $500 for prep?
Right.
Well, we had to get a technician to do it. That's a lie. Most dealerships get some kid that they're paying $15 an hour to do it and a technician to review it.
Right. And another part of that is when you do buy the bike, or even leave a deposit, the relationship changes between you and the salesperson.
Yeah, you're not friends anymore.
It's like when you're thinking about buying a bike, it feels nice.
Best friends, man.
After you get that money, it's almost like I'm trying to hide. They're trying to hide from me, and I owe them money or something like that, or they owe me money. And I realized that as well. It was just kind of like, huh. It's like the phone call is like, not the same. Like, what do you want? I'm just trying to call and, ask about, this data package or whatever. Right. It's just, so that's not good for business. You know what I mean? And, and I don't know if it's because owners are not as involved anymore to the day-to-day or just seeing what's going on and stuff like that. But it is
sometimes it's owners not involved. Sometimes it's sales managers that kind of like, put a lot of pressure on the salespeople. Like, hey, you need, this is how many units you're supposed to sell this month. So like the person's got to be constantly calling, constantly hustling, constantly trying to get people back, right. Get that deposit, get the bike units sold. And then sometimes it just comes down to training. I mean, I hate to say it, but most motorcycle dealerships don't focus heavily on training their staff. They expect the staff to come from another dealership with already the knowledge. Right. But if their knowledge is not great from the other dealership, then they're just, I think I told you this before. The motorcycle industry is great for the environment. We love to recycle trash. So one other dealer's trash, send it this way. If I can get it for, $18 an hour, I'll take that trash for $18 an hour. But again, we're recycling trash. Like, I'd rather bring somebody else new, show them the right way to do it, show them from soup to nuts how to take care of the customer in any department, whether it's sales, service, or parts, right. How to take care of customer from soup to nuts. And even after they leave, at the dealership I worked at, we used to have a system where after a customer leaves, 30 days later, the salesperson would call them. How's your bike? How's it doing? Right. When they came to pick up the bike, the salesperson would be the one that goes out there and walks them through the bike with a tech. Understand everything about the bike. That's your relationship. The dealership owns the relationship, but you own that relationship yourself with that customer. Because guess what? You might not always work for that dealer. And the day you go somewhere, you have a relationship with that customer. And if they ever walk into another dealership and see you, guess who they're going to work with?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, I do wish that there was a standard or some policies in place, because it's very difficult when you go to a business and three people give you three different, what the policy is. Yeah. And it's just, okay, so nobody knows.
At that point right there, that's bad management.
Yeah.
Like, bad management doesn't have things written because they want the levity to move left and right very quickly. good management has things written, set in stone. This is the way we do things. So there's no surprise to the customer. There's no surprise to anybody that walks into these doors. We're going to take care of them. This is how we take care of them. This is, no matter who they ask, the same answer is what they're going to get.
Yeah.
And that puts you at ease as a customer. Like, oh man, this place isn't, these aren't used car salesmen. They're not trying to get one over on me.
Right. And, you would think that's an easy lesson to learn. You know what I mean? Like you would just think like, good customer service goes a long way.
It does, but at most dealerships, I'm going to be honest with you, at very reputable dealerships, I've been dealerships all over this country and outside this country. At most dealerships, that's what you'll find. You'll find people that are legitimately want to do business with you, want to do the right business with you.
Right.
The problem that we've seen, especially in the last 6-7 years, is the turnover rate at dealerships for employees has been super high. And so you're just kind of churning people in and out, in and out, in and out. And you're just trying to give them like a very quick, 2-week or 3-week training on how to do things just so they can get ready for the season. If you go into most dealers that are north of Virginia right now, it's cold. So most of those shops have laid off a big portion of their sales team.
Yeah.
Most of those people have to go get other jobs. They can't wait around till the summer to get a new job. So then what happens? In about February, those same dealerships start hiring new people. And they got about a month to get them trained. And then they push them through the meat grinder for a few months in the summer and maybe a few months in the fall. And then depending on how they do, they might keep them the next winter so they don't lose them, or they lay them off. And then the cycle repeats itself. And that inconsistency leads to an inconsistent product.
Yeah, I completely agree. And before we get out of here, let's jump into Motor America because there's a lot of changes. That's happened, and we'll leave the dealers alone for until the next show.
Well, Motor America, we got a lot of. I mean, it seems like most of the teams have kind of shown their cards now. So the Yamaha team is going to be Jake Gagne is coming back.
Yeah.
From what I understand, he had surgery. It went well, and he's gonna, get back on the bike and see, if everything stays in place. Cam Peterson is not going to be on the factory Yamaha team. Bobby Fong has taken his place, which I think is well earned because I don't like to say deserved. It's earned because he was the #1 Yamaha rider last year on a satellite bike, on a satellite team with not the most current and most nicest equipment.
Right. So, so you feel
Cameron Peterson is moving over to Warhorse Ducati and Baz is out.
Wow.
And I don't know where Baz is going. I mean, I would love if Baz stayed racing in the US. Honestly, I would love to see him on a bagger.
Okay.
I think on a bagger, he would be like a very, very fun guy to watch, man.
And why do you think Warhorse didn't keep him? I think it's only 1 year, right?
Yeah. I think it was only a 1-year contract. And I mean, I don't know, man. It's really difficult to say because it could be a lot of different reasons.
He crashed out a little bit, but
yeah, he crashed. But I mean, he got one win because Heron let him win.
Yeah.
At the end of the year. But I think he was a really good teammate. I think he was very great for the team. Again, I don't know, man. What's the situation with Cam Peterson? How did he get the ride?
Right.
Did he show up with some sponsorship money or something like that? And, that's a lot of people don't like to talk about that, but that's a realistic part of motorcycle racing is sometimes you show up with some money and it's like, hey man, you're fired. This guy over here has money.
Yeah. Okay. So, and Fong earned the seat, but Peterson might have a little bit more money to get another seat. So.
I mean, I know Bobby, and he used to work as a garage door installer, so I don't think he's coming from like a lot of money. So he has to work to get a seat because he's not going to show up and be like, "Hey, man, Red Bull is sponsoring me," or whatever. Right. And I think that the last year or the last couple of years, like he kind of re-endeared himself to a lot of people, especially in the paddock, especially like a lot of team owners and team managers. They just kind of saw him grinding in the Bagger Series, grinding in this, grinding in that, just, willing to work for any ride that he can kind of get his leg on. And I think last year was a really good year for him. He really showed some good riding skill with what he had. And I think that's the main thing is that a lot of people realize what he's riding and how he's doing. And they're like, you know what, like on a better bike, we think he could actually do even better than what he did last year.
Nice. And how you think Peterson's going to do on that V4?
That's hard to say, man, because my question is, I don't know if they're not going to be on the same V4.
I think they're going to be on a 24 bike still. Like from my understanding, because the double-sided swing arm V4R isn't out yet, so they're not coming out unless there's no 25. So I think it's gonna be 26 that bike comes out. So I think they're running.
That's weird V4. Because it's the homologation is based on how many units of a bike you can sell in a year. So unless Ducati's going to pad some numbers and say that they're selling XYZ many V4s in 2025, technically it's not a 2025 bike.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Unless they might be able to release it later in the year in 25.
But they still would need to. They still need to sell a certain amount of units to homologate it.
The R's are going to sell out. The R's are going to sell out. If it was any other bike, I'd be like, but the R's are going to. I know guys that are talking about, I'm getting the V4S now, and then as soon as the R comes out, I'm getting that. So
tell them to call me when the R comes out. I'll buy their S for like $20,000.
Right.
I mean, if they're on the same bike, I mean, they already have a very competitive platform. A lot of people have ridden the bike. A lot of people have raced the bike. Petrucci raced the bike. A lot of guys have been on the bike, and it's competitive.
Right. And then I don't know how different it is between like the BSB bikes or the World Super bikes.
I mean, from what I understand, the Warhorse team does most of their build here in the US. I'm sure they get some parts from Europe, or they get some data from Europe.
Got you.
It's hard to say. I mean, if you look at the Yamaha World Super bikes, I guarantee you that Chuck's bikes are not exactly Yamaha Super bikes from World Superbike. But I'm sure he gets all the technical aspects, and then he can recreate it best he can with what he can do with his machine shop and with his mechanics. Okay. And then the BMW team, or the Tyler's BMW team, from what I understand right now, only has one bike, and it's Cameron Bobier.
Oh, okay.
From what I know, JD Beach is not on the team, or that team's not going to field two bikes, is what I've been hearing. So, which is sad. I mean, the more bikes, the better. Sean Dillon Kelly is still going to be on a BMW for Top Pro Racing, is the last that I heard.
Yep. Which is it's interesting because like it looks like like Loris Baz, Peterson. I mean, granted, they still finished like I think top 8, right? Those guys.
Yeah, but I think I don't understand the Baz one, to be honest with you, because like I said, I think he was really good for the team and for the team culture. Like he fit well as a teammate. He did his job as a teammate. He understood he wasn't the number one rider, and he took that job and did the best he could with it. He made sure that the team overall won a championship. Whereas Peterson, I think Peterson might have like burned a couple of bridges, and it didn't help him very well.
Gotcha.
And I think the last 2 races at New Jersey were kind of like the nails in his coffin, man.
Okay.
Because I was at that round, and there was a lot of not great words coming out of the Yamaha garage.
Oh man, this business is a tough one. And and everybody has a long memory.
Oh yeah, and
it's like when you crash, you should have a short memory, but outside of that, everybody else is taking notes.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you in Superbike, more than anything, you can't lie to your team because the bike records everything you do.
Right.
So if you come back and you're like, the brakes failed, guess what, man? The team's going to go into your ECU and they're going to find out if the brakes failed.
Yeah.
Oh, something's wrong with the bike. This is going on. They're going to go into your ECU. Yo, that's not going on. And if that's what you're coming at your team with, then your team loses confidence in you, and they're not going to want to ride with you. They're not going to put the money it takes to put a Superbike on the grid for you.
Right.
So I think maybe some of that happened in New Jersey, and that's why he's not on the R1.
All right. I mean, are you looking forward to the next year's season? Which one are you looking forward more? World Superbike, MotoGP, or Moto America? Or are
I
they
mean, I
all
like
must
them
watch
all.
TV?
World
Yeah.
Superbike is going to be interesting. Just like I told you before, I want to see what this new Biamoda will do with the Kawasaki motor in it because
Yeah.
it looks like it's pretty competitive in the practices or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
trials.
Gerloff looked like he's liking it. Is it Bassani's still on it as well,
Yep.
right?
And one of the low side
Low.
brothers,
Yeah. Alex.
Alex Lowside, is on it. So,
Man,
um,
hey, listen, as long as you can stay in the sport, you stay in the sport, man. I can't
well,
be
I
mad at
think he's
that.
married to the owner's daughter, so
Oh,
I don't think he's gonna have a problem getting
yeah,
a
yeah,
job. I don't
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
I like
That
it. Would
helps,
you want to make your daughter's husband unemployed?
right?
Probably not.
No, no, no. And it was good to see Alex do well on the
Yep.
Cowie after Ray left because like I mentioned at the beginning of this last year's season, he's one of the riders that can seize the day because I didn't think Top Rock would have done what he did, but he was on the same bike, so he had a chance to jump out front, which he was trying.
Mhm.
You just had the likes of Anoni and Top Rock and all these other guys that really came up to speed pretty quickly on their new bikes.
Yeah, no. I mean, in World Superbike, the Ducati is a killer, and then the BMW is a killer.
Yeah.
And I think the top two guys this year will be the top two guys again next year. I think Bulaga and Toprak are still going to be the two main guys to beat. I
Hmm.
think Iannone, after 1 year, is going to take another step, and he'll be in the fight more often. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I still think the top two guys are going to be Toprak and Bulaga. I think Bulaga just has something extra right now that Bautista doesn't have.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I mean,
know, he,
yeah, I think Bautista's coming back at the end, but he's definitely made last year was the most mistakes in the 6 years he's been in World Superbike. It
Well,
was a
no,
lot.
remember that first year, the first year he was with Ducati, he won, I think, the first 12 races in a row.
Right, right.
And then they reduced his RPM by, I think, like 500 RPM or something like
Something.
that. And all
Yeah,
of a sudden he couldn't ride the bike for shit.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
every
yeah,
corner he was in the kitty litter.
yeah, yeah,
And then he
yeah.
left. I think he went to Honda
Honda for 2 years.
for 2 years.
That's fast 2 years, man.
I mean, it was a fast 2 years from 11th place because that Honda is
Yeah.
not doing anything.
No, I think he got that Honda check.
Yeah. And then as soon as they fixed the bike and he came back to Ducati again, all of a sudden he was dominant again.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, the guy is a great rider, but he matched well with the bike. And then this year they again made some changes to the bike that didn't
Added
adapt
weight.
to him.
Thanks to Redden.
Yeah. And now, I mean, it's true, man. You shouldn't be 80 pounds and with your bike combined be 400 pounds and everybody else is 520 pounds and be like, I'm the best rider. No shit, man. You're 120 pounds lighter than everybody else on the grid. You should be going fast. Like, there's a reason nobody can overtake you in a straightaway, my man.
Yeah, but under colder conditions, he would struggle more because he would have trouble keeping heat in the tire and stuff like that, like Pedrosa did on the Honda. It's not exact.
Come on, man. They're not racing in Antarctica. Like, I think I actually like the bike rider combination minimum weight rule because I say it because I know and I've seen a lot of these guys struggling to get weight down
Mm-hmm.
to try to stay competitive to the point where they look emaciated. And when you're that thin, you lose muscle, you lose this, you lose that. Like it's not healthy, man. I don't want to see waif models.
Right.
On motorcycles. Like I want to see healthy, competitive athletes. And if you have to, Top Rack is not the shortest guy in the world, man.
No.
And for him to get down to 140 pounds, I mean, at his height is.
Well, even you can see it with Danilo Petrucci, like what he was when he first came into MotoGP to how he's like my weight now.
Yeah.
And that dude was big.
Yeah, it can be healthy, man. It can be healthy for the riders, and I think a minimum weight bike and rider combined is the right way to go, at least to level that playing field off. Nice. And then after that, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm looking forward to. There's so many, good things coming. The R9, how's it gonna do?
Right?
Is it gonna shit the bed, or is it gonna actually be as competitive or more competitive than the R6?
Oh, the new V2, right? Because the new V2 can come out now. The new
Yep.
V2 they're going to be running. So
Yeah.
that's going to be it's going to be interesting because I think MV Agusta, World Superbike might jump out front because who else is there?
I mean, there's a
Triumph,
big field. The problem is like there's so many unknowns because it's always been R6 and the last couple of years the Ducati V2.
right?
Before that, I mean, Kawasaki I don't think has seen a podium in super sport in a lifetime.
They got
Like,
one. They got one last year with Chad, didn't they? Chad and Chu, I
ZX6,
think. Yeah,
ZX6. Wow.
yeah. He got one. I mean, he it's a third place. He wasn't happy with it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Honda has not been super competitive in the Super 600 series for a long time. I mean,
Yeah,
they get a podium here and there, but it's not consistent.
And their
But
factory
you
team
just
just
took
signed Anna Carrasca, and I believe who's the other guy there, the English guy there that was on Moto3 for the longest, McPhee.
McPhee.
I think McPhee and Carrasca is going to be on the Honda next year, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean it will be because I mean I would like to see the Honda back up on the podium because they really did invent the 600 Super Sport. They really did create the 600 Super Sport class, and then Yamaha jumped in, and so how will the R9 do and how will the new V2 do are the two biggest question marks right now. Not just in World Super Sport, but even here in Moto America, because those two, the R6 and the V2, have been the class of the field. I mean, the R6 for
ever
20 years, at least 20 years. And the Ducati V2, I mean, it's over CC'd for the class, but the R6 was still keeping up with it. Still won the championship last year.
Yeah.
So, will this Ducati change set them back or move them forward, or what will happen is, I know that the R9, they're going to have to kind of build out the same way they built out the R6.
Right.
It's not going to be a fully stock motor.
Right. Yeah. They're going to have to build and the V2. So I don't know. It's going to be a learning year for them. But again, these other manufacturers has a chance to jump out front while Ducati and Yamaha.
This is the time to do it, man. If Kawasaki has anything up their sleeve, this is the time to bring out a new ZX6 or something. Because this is the time. Because I think the R9 is probably going to do halfway decent. It's not going to be immediately competitive, but like the team that they built is here in the US is really good. Like they have Matthew Schultz and they have Blake Davis on the same team.
Okay.
And so it's a Yamaha supported R9 team. And then obviously on the Ducati side, you've got the entire team from
PJ Jacobs,
PJ Jacobs, and Kayla and Alex Corey Alexander.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm from what I understand, that's still the team is still the same for next year.
Oh wow, okay.
I haven't heard anybody got booted. So and I don't think that. I mean, PJ did a great job. Alex did a great job. If you know Alex, like he's a great rider. He's a super nice guy, and he did a great job. And even Kayla had a couple of great moments this past year, and hopefully she can improve on those moments this coming year.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to racing. This is the not the boringest time of the season of the year, but I can't wait for racing to start again.
Maybe I'll see you the end of January. I might be going down to Homestead for a couple of days to check out some people.
Okay.
So if you end up deciding you want to do a track day at the end of January, let me know. I'll probably be down there.
All right, we'll talk some more off here. But I want to thank you for coming on, Luis Ortega, VP of Dainese Development. Thank you for coming on, man.
No, anytime, man. Have a great day.
You too.
Take care, everybody.